Alright guys, welcome to another video from XF Motorsports. This one is going to be about taking this car, the E55 ASL, to CSCS Round 5, which is the biggest time attack event here in Canada. I have been wanting to take this car to that event for a really long time, but now finally was a chance to actually take it there. Not in its complete form, it was still missing some of the bodywork and a few other things that I needed to do on it, but nonetheless it was an amazing event, and while judging by the stickers on the car and everything, you probably already have guessed it that I'm filming this intro a little later, and I have already taken this car to that event. But now is the time to show you guys everything that happened on the event, and later we'll also talking about some of the improvements that I will be making on the car over the winter and getting the car in even better shape for next year. So starting off by showing you guys the car and some of the changes that we've made to it since the previous time you might have seen it on the channel, and we're also giving the car a quick introduction. Actually, this is a car that I call the E55 ASL. It's based on my Mercedes E55 AMG. It's a car that I literally built in my home garage before I had this shop. So I basically took the engine from the E55, took the supercharger off it, added 2 turbos with it. It's making 550 wheel horsepower. It's mated to a Nissan 350Z 6-speed manual transmission. The whole chassis is tube steel, custom made, and the differential at the back is a Wavetrack LSD, and the whole car weighs 950 kilograms, so it's fairly lightweight, really powerful, and extremely fun to drive. So showing you guys some of the changes that we've made to the car since the last time. Well, one biggest change is that I've gotten rid of the crappy aluminum fuel cell that cracked at Northern Speed time attack and started leaking fuel all over the place, because of which I couldn't use the car for a really long time. But this time, luckily, Sebastian, who was one of the customers over here and also a part of the team now, he welded this stainless steel fuel cell for the car, which is also has like a foot panel and everything over there, so that people can actually sit more comfortably in the car. And he also tidied up the interior a bit, covered up the drive shaft, and did a few other things to like make the car a little less scarier for people to sit in, because that's the other request that I really got from a lot of people, was that they wanted to ride along in the car and really experience how this car feels like on the track. So that's one thing we did do on this time attack, taking people along and getting their feedback on the car. The other change that I made to the car that did not turn out to be such a good change was putting the car on these Pirelli DH slick tires. Before, the car was on street legal tires. They were BF Goodrich G-Force R1s, and the car was handling really well on those tires. But that said, let's take you guys to the CSCS and show you guys everything that happened on the event. There guys, we're finally here at the CSCS. The car is here. The small team of XF Motorsports is here. Karen and Sebastian. Sebastian's too busy on the phone, but now it's time to offload the car. Head to tech. We gotta make sure that everything is good so that the car gets allowed on the track, and then it's gonna be onto the event.
To be first are going to be at the back of that.
So after offloading the car, there was a small drivers meeting to attend, and after that it was into the lineup for tech. They basically inspect your car and make sure that it's safe enough so that it can go on the track and not explode in the middle of the racetrack. This time all the camera work was done by Karen, and I was busy with the car mostly. Okay, so the car is now all ready, all the stickers are on, and in about 15 minutes I'm going to be going on the track for the CSCS. For this first session I'll just feel the car out, because these two people are being too chicken to come along in the car with us. So, by the way, I'm recording with myself.
You're scared to go alone. You're scared to go alone.
No, I'm not. I just wanted you guys to go. Yeah, why wouldn't you come along? Like, what's...
We'll go later. Scared? Excited? Nervous?
Going out for the first session, everything else on the car felt normal, except for the car was not gripping at all. The temperatures that morning were pretty cold, and also I had set the tire pressures, I guess, pretty high. They were at 25 psi, and they were not gripping at all. The car was spinning the rear wheels all the way down the straight. On top of that, the lap time was ridiculously slow. I got a 126 on this first time out, which was 10 seconds slower than what the car had done previously on the same track. So obviously there was quite a lot of figuring out to do with the tires. I didn't get all the laps on camera just because I had mounted the camera on the rear wing, and every time I went down the straight the wind was so violent it would point the camera upwards. Later on I fixed this, but just for the first 2 sessions I don't have too much good video. Okay, so after the first time out, the car was skating all over the place. I guess I didn't set the tire pressures, well, I set the tire pressures too much. It was at 25 psi cold, which I don't think these tires liked too much because they were not gripping at all. So I've dropped the tire pressures to 20 psi now. I'm going to go back out there again, but I think I'll really need to put some heat into these tires because it's a cold day, and I guess I just got to push the car a little more and get some heat in the tires before the lap times get down, because right now it was really slow, way slower than before. So let's see how the second session goes. For the second session, Sebastian finally decided to come along, and this time I dropped the tire pressures a little lower too, and the car gripped a lot better. The lap times dropped from 1 minute 26 down to 1 minute 18, which was still 2 seconds slower than what the car had done previously, but still quite a lot better than how it was doing before. This time the camera also messed up going down the street, that's why I don't have too much video from this session, but luckily Karen recorded some good video from outside.
I was fucking awesome.
Really?
This thing fucking flies.
Should be flying faster.
Faster?
It should be gripping better. Down the street is
But
good.
did you feel any better in the grip? Like,
Yeah, grip improved.
Yeah.
This time it's C118. Last time it
maybe
was
that's why
126. For the third session, Sebastian's brother decided to come along, who also owns an E55 and actually also races it around the same track. But he actually got a little too scared in this car and decided not to come for a ride again. This time I had dropped the tire pressures even lower. I took them down all the way to 16 psi, and believe it or not, the grip levels became even better. The car did, well, close to a 117, somewhere around that lap time this time out. But later on I had a few outings. I braked a little too late on one of the corners and could not slow the car down in time and went off the track. That's why I decided to pull in and check on the car, but luckily nothing at all broke on the car.
How do you feel?
I think I gotta figure the tires, because that's where the car is lacking in the corners. It's really fast down the streets. Everything else is good, just the tires aren't gripping.
What's your best time so far?
117. For the fourth time out, Karen, the biggest chicken in the world, finally decided to come along after like 3 years of convincing.
I don't go easy on her, huh?
No. You have to go easy on me or I'm gonna be upset.
This time out I drove really slow for the first lap just because I did not want to scare Karen. This was her first time on any track, and being in a car, an open top car that goes faster than 200 kilometers per hour down the street, it is pretty scary for new people. But lucky for her, I only did one lap, and then one Civic went into the wall, because of which they had to red flag the whole session and everyone had to come off. How was it, Karen?
It was not as bad as I was expecting.
Exactly.
But I wanted to throw up.
But you made it.
nauseous.
High five. After that, there was a bit of a break for time attack, so we went to see some drifting, all types of drifting. And also some of the show cars that showed up. What about this one? So after that, it was time for the last session of this qualifying, and I wanted to put a good lap time this time out because my lap time according to the CSCS timing system was 118 before this, and I was told the cutoff was going to be 107% from the fastest lap, which was 113 at that time, and that meant that the cutoff was going to be around a 1 minute 18, so I was pretty close to it. So what I did was I dropped the tire pressures all the way down to 14 psi. I only went out there by myself, and I think I did pretty good as a driver too this time out, because looking at the telemetry and how little grip there was out there, getting even a 117 in this situation was a pretty good lap time. So I'll let you guys watch this full lap, because I think as a driver at least, this is pretty much the best lap I've done in this car so far. Okay, so the qualifying is over and I did manage to qualify. Now the last step left is to go for the final qualifying. I'm going to get 5 laps and then I'm going to get to the fastest lap, and that's going to be the lap. The car did a 1 minute 17 so far, which is, well, a second slower than what it's done previously, so I still got to figure the tires out. The front is not gripping too well, so that's the only problem. That's Karen making another entrance in the video, but yeah, let's go out there. I'm actually down to 14 psi of pressure at the front, so there's nothing more I can lower it by. But yeah, let's just go out there and see how it does. Here's a look at all the qualifying results after the qualifying was over, and I managed to qualify 23rd out of 100 cars. And this was still a pretty good result considering the situation. Like, the car was not pulling nearly the same G-forces it was pulling last time. Previously it used to pull 1.7 Gs in the corners, now it was down to barely 1.3 Gs. The tires were not even getting up to temperature, they were only getting up to 30 degrees Celsius, whereas these tires are supposed to work at 80 degrees Celsius, so there's a massive difference there. Really, I think the problem is that, well, these tires are meant for GT3 cars that are a lot heavier than this one. They weigh 1300 kilograms, this car only weighs 950 kilograms, and in cold weather like this, it just did not have enough weight to put too much temperature in these tires to make them work properly. Before the final time attack, there was one more crazy event that the CSCS is known for. That's Max Attack. They basically take all the competitors from Time Attack that want to compete in Max Attack, and they place them in reverse order. So the slowest cars start in front and the fastest cars start at the back, and they only have like 4 or 5 laps to make their way through all these slower cars, and like whoever like basically ends up first after those laps in terms of track position wins the max attack. So there's crazy overtaking going on all over the place, and it's the most insane race you'll see anywhere. Of course, I didn't compete in max attack right now because my car did not feel too good on these tires. I was afraid I was going to lock up and crash into someone if I competed. But I think once the car is in good shape and if I feel confident enough for next year, maybe I'll take part in this one too. So after that I had to go out there one more time to set my final time attack laps. They basically give you 5 laps and you have to set your best lap within those 5 laps, and that's your final lap. After doing my laps I realized that I was actually the only person racing in the exhibition category, so whatever lap time I did I would have managed to win my category by default, because well, the exhibition category is meant for cars like the Radicals, Ariel Adams, GT3 cars, or any non-production car or race car. They put it in this category. Usually it's more competitive than this, but this time none of the other cars showed up. That's why really all I had to do was qualify to win. I think the main competition of this car is going to be against the Radical SR3, because that usually posts like 1 minute 13s and those types of lap times are on this track, which is I think pretty close to what this car would be doing once all the tire issues and everything is sorted and it's making its proper power. Ariel Adams are still a little on the slow side. I think most of the ones I've seen, they do 1 minute 20s or 1 minute 18s around this lap, so they're not as quick as Radicals.
Oh, actually, he is tied for the best time in the top grid here with car number 23, Chen Ji Pan, also from MTech Auto, and also...
So after that, all I had to do was go to the podium, collect my trophy, and that was it for the day. So that was everything that happened at the CSCS, and this is the trophy that I collected at the end, the CSCS Round 5 winning trophy. And even though this was a bit of a lucky win, I'm still happy with it, because in order to win it, first you have to qualify, and even to qualify at the CSCS season finale, you need to be like you need to have a pretty quick lap time. This time I think the cutoff was like 1:18, what people told me, so I'm still pretty happy with it. And considering that I was able to do it on these crappy tires that were not even getting up to temperature, that was probably the bigger challenge for me, really making the most out of what I could do on these tires. But of course, now talking about what are the next changes that I need to make to the car to get to the lap times that I'm really chasing after, get it down to like the 1:13s and yeah, really quick lap times basically. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of these tires. I'm going to move back to the BF Goodrich G-Force R1s that I was running before, because the car is already tested on it. It's already set up for those tires, suspension wise and alignment wise and everything, and those tires were working really well on this car. The balance was perfect. They get up to temperature really easily, and of course they work extremely well. G-force levels were up to like 1.7 Gs with those tires, and of course pushing more downforce and everything, I think they will go up even better than that. Other than that, the next thing that is going to be coming up is going to be the rest of the bodywork of the car, adding the front fenders, the rear fenders, the trunk lid, making the proper rear wing. This was not the proper rear wing, this is just a fiberglass rear wing that I was running right now, but the proper one is going to be carbon fiber. It's going to be much more rigid than this one, and hopefully it's going to give me a lot more downforce. There's also going to be a smaller carbon fiber wing that is going to go on those two mounts at the bottom. So hopefully, yeah, once all the bodywork is done, the car is going to have better aerodynamics, more downforce, and downforce makes a massive difference in a car like this. So that alone, I believe, will shave off some critical seconds of lap time. But other than that, I also need to retune the engine, put more boost in it, tune it for 15 psi rather than 9 psi, and I believe the engine will be making close to like 700 wheel horsepower at that point. You might say that in a lightweight car like this, do you really need that much power? But the thing is that even at 550 wheel horsepower, now the car is putting down power so well at corner exits and everything that at this point I can go with more power and actually make a pretty decent gain in terms of lap times, because yeah, it's just putting the power down perfectly. It's not giving me any issues. It doesn't really even feel like an overpowered car or anything. So that's the change that I'm really excited to make, and I'm really curious to see what type of ridiculous speeds this car would hit down the streets once it's actually given its full power. Other than that, I also need to fix up on this automated manual transmission that I had to do for a really long time, and I, well, just never really got the time to do it. So basically, yeah, this transmission was supposed to shift gears automatically, so that I had those pedals behind the steering wheel, so that when I press the pedals, basically it engages and disengages the clutch and does all the gear shifting for me. Right now, the only part of the system that I was using was a pneumatic clutch. I have this switch over here that when I press it, the clutch engages, but other than that, I wasn't using any other part of the system. So that's something that I really need to improve. It's a really small improvement that I needed to make on it, because the system was working. It's just not working well enough that I trust it to use it on the track. And of course, the other really big change that I need to make on this engine is that I need to move to a full dry sump system, because, well, this oiling system, it's not keeping up with this car at all. Yeah, the oil just all accumulates in the heads, and it literally starts spitting oil out of the head. There's also points where sometimes the oil pressure falls completely to zero because of like too much g-force in the corners or going on the brakes too hard. So basically the oil is splashing around so much in the engine that sometimes the oil collector doesn't get any oil at all. On my previous E55, of course, I had a much bigger issue. The oil collector o-ring broke completely, and the engine had no oil pressure for 3 laps, and the engine like completely blew to pieces. But this one is not as bad as that, but of course over time this will also damage the engine internally, and like before that happens, I'm thinking of moving to a full dry sump system. There's no dry sump options for this engine right now. No one is actually making a dry sump kit for it, but now, since I have a CNC machine and a shop and everything, I'm planning to be the first one to actually make a dry sump system for these engines. The only option that Mercedes have is that this engine actually does come in a dry sump for the Mercedes McLaren SLR, but I asked the dealers the cost for that much, and it's ridiculously high. The pump alone for that car is $13,000. The sump is another additional $20,000 or something, so the whole system is probably worth more than buying 20 of these engines or something. So it's not worth buying. So yeah, I'm just gonna make my own dry sump system, and hopefully that is gonna solve these whole oiling issues of this engine, and hopefully it's gonna help it run much more reliable for next time. Also, other than that, some other videos that you guys are going to be seeing coming sooner than that. You guys are going to be seeing some work on this car, the E55, that we're manual swapping, so the automatic transmission is already out of this car. This is the 350 transmission that we're putting in this car, so doing the exact same swap that is in this car, but in a street legal production car. So that's something that I'm extremely excited about, seeing how it works in this car, how it actually feels to drive, like driving a manual E55 on the street with a 350Z transmission. And other than that, there's also Sebastian's other car in here. It's a 300ZX, which we've taken the engine out of. We are replacing the turbos and a whole bunch of stuff on this engine. And yeah, that's something that you guys are also going to be seeing coming really soon. Other than that, this is the Thunderbird engine that I'm also going to be rebuilding. And also you guys are going to get to see quite a lot of stuff being made on this CNC machine, because this machine has been pretty busy over the last few days making some parts. So yeah, that's going to be everything for now. Thanks a lot for watching. I will see you guys in the next one.